And what I'm now going to talk about is the subject of human unhappiness. Now, when it comes to this, there's a tremendous resistance to being honest about human unhappiness. Now, the reason is that the human striving of trying to look good in our own eyes and the eyes of others is so pervasive and so strong. The idea of admitting or even acknowledging that behind most of our behavior and most of the ways that we live is a sense of I am unhappy, I am deficient and inferior and inadequate, and therefore I am doing things in order to remedy this, is not something that people like to freely admit or acknowledge. Even though we see all the time people striving for things like approval, they're striving to become a person who is approved of and loved, or maintain their position of an approved of, loved person. They're trying to become a superior person, somebody who is better and bigger and is superior in relation to other people. They're trying to become a superior person. They're trying to become a perfect person. They're trying to get other people to treat them in such a way that they can feel like they're a person who's worthy of respect and dignity. They're trying to gain power over the environment so they don't feel a helpless person. This constant striving to be a certain type of person in order to feel complete in Vedanta is called becoming. Now, Swami Dayananda says the only reason we're trying to become a happy person is that we believe that we're an unhappy person. I mean, this makes sense, doesn't it? The fact that the other thing about this is that when we're striving to become a happy person, and it's a life and death issue psychologically, this whenever we're frustrated in our efforts, we experience intense emotional reaction. And this intense emotional reaction tells us the compulsiveness or the intensity or the inner felt necessity that I must become a certain type of person in order to be happy. And the thing is that if I am not happy within myself as myself, but I have notions about myself as inadequate, as insufficient, as not good enough, etc., etc., these self-notions or this self-judgment, this generalized self-judgment as to my inadequacy, I will compulsively try to become a person who's not like that. And I may not even acknowledge this to myself. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic bracket I'm in. This is a universal problem. No matter how much money I make, it will never be enough. No matter how much approval I get, it will never be enough. Because if my self-notion is one of inadequacy and insufficiency, which for us human beings, this is universal, even though unacknowledged, because in our culture we've got to be so positive and so cool and all of this type of thing. But this striving to, in my own eyes, to become a person who's, in my own eyes, that I approve of it, or become a person who, in the eyes of others, is approved of, is such a strong motivating drive. And it's called, in Vedanta, this is called becoming, or another word they use for it is samsara. It's just moving around and around in the same circle. We may have different experiences. It's very much like the Greek god Sisyphus, that guy that was rolling a boulder up the hill, and he keep on rolling this boulder up, and when he'd get to the top of the hill, down it would come crashing, and then he'd come up again, get the boulder. And each time he was full of hope that eventually he was going to get to the top and he'd remain to the top. Of course you can't. The whole process of becoming is actually very, very futile. It will never work. It will never gain the completeness that we seek. However, irrespective of that, we will continually engage in it, or we are engaged in it. So it is our existential condition that we as human beings feel inadequate, insufficient, and unhappy as a person, as an I. I am insufficient. I am unhappy. I am inadequate. Now I want to be adequate, sufficient, and happy. I want to be, as a person, I want to become happy. And we hardly ever challenge this, or we pretend this is not the case. I mean, if for example, there's a certain type of embarrassment about this, because the idea of being superior to other people, you wouldn't like other people. Well, actually, I'd like to feel superior to other people, because if I feel superior to other people, then I don't feel inadequate. That we don't acknowledge that. We pretend to ourselves that we're not like that. We pretend to ourselves that we don't desperately need things other than ourselves to feel full. Even though when you think about it, the degree of self-hatred of human beings is phenomenal. This is why we see universally a lot of criticism of other people. You know, when we have bitch sessions and we talk about others and we get into a group and, oh, look at that person, oh, God, how could they be like that? Or we get morally indignant about the actions of other people. Of course we do, because when we do, we don't feel it in ourselves. So we feel the defects belong to other people. And for a brief moment, when we're criticizing or righteously indignant about the stupidity of others, we don't feel so stupid. So this, in order to cure the disease, Swami Dayananda says, we have to kind of know what it is. Otherwise, we're not going to value the solution. If we feel that in our lives everything's honky-dory and everything's fine, we're not really qualified for Vedanta. Because Vedanta solves this particular human problem of inadequacy and insufficiency and our compulsive strivings to do something about it. And all of those strivings are reactions. So even our very strivings, even when we in one sense showing off or subtly bragging or promoting ourselves in various ways, even in the spiritual world, you know, like, if I'm unspiritual, if only I could become really spiritual, if only if I could get the goodies like become enlightened or something like that. All of these things are based on the fact of this self-judgment that somehow I, as a being, as a person, am inadequate, and therefore I've got to do, and because I have that conclusion, I must by necessity do something about it. And our whole life becomes, whether we know it or not, an effort, a resistance to this inadequacy and insufficiency. And it becomes full of hopes. Maybe I can do something about this. Maybe if I find the right person, I could become loved. Or maybe if I could make enough money, then I do. If only if I could attain the prestige and power that I need, then I could feel like something in my life is worthwhile. This is the whole thing. But by necessity, the striving to become something other than what I think that I am will always result in continual experiences of unhappiness. This is just the rule. It's just simply the way that it works. And this is what I'm going to go more into next time. Examining honestly this condition that we find ourselves within.